Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the podcast on the Sicha for the weekly Sicha of Project Likkutei Sichos. Today, we are learning and podcasting and farbringing about the Sicha in Chelek Chaf Hey. The Sicha is Vayera, the second Sicha, Vayera Beis. Just to open it up, we're talking about Chesed, talking about doing kindness, a very, very important theme, specifically because we call ourselves Hasidim. And Hasidim is the idea of chesed, of kindness, but obviously in connection to the story of Avram and how he represents chesed. But let's get into the background and the context. And for that, I'll turn it over to Moshe to give us the background story so we could delve into it and dissect it and learn together.
Okay, so obviously Parshas Vayera speaks about Avram Avinu. The story, one of the stories in the Parsha, is Avram who is negotiating with Hashem with regards to saving the people of Sdom. And in the course of that argument, Avram, reaching a certain point where he felt that he was maybe going overboard, he turns to Hashem and he says, "V'anochi offer ve'efer." I am dust and ashes. So the Gemara in Sicha says that in the schar, as a reward for putting himself, humbling himself in this way, recognizing his smallness, referring to himself as offer and efer. So offer meaning dirt and efer meaning ash. The Eibishter gave his children, us, two mitzvahs. Efer, para, the ash of the para, which is the mitzvah of para aduma, the red heifer, which is a process in which a person that became tameh, became ritually unclean, is able to re-enter the Beis Hamikdash by having a mixture of the blood of the red heifer and some earth and some other things. Is it blood or is it ash? I'm sorry, ash. The ash of the para aduma. And sprinkled on the person. And then there's afar saita. There is when there is a question to the faithfulness of a wife. One of the ways the Torah tells us to uncover the truth is by taking dirt from the Beis Hamikdash together with some other things and having the saita, the woman in question, drink it, and then it reveals if she was righteous or at least not guilty. It reveals her not guilty by actually bringing her not guiltiness by actually bringing blessings upon her. I got a little carried away there, so I'll try to keep the rest of it brief. The question that Rebbe asks is everything in Torah is precise. There must be a deeper connection between Avram Avinu and specifically these two mitzvahs. The words offer and efer are not enough to explain this connection. And in very short, the Rebbe explains that there's different types of kindness. There's a kindness that comes from a place of being, let's call it a big shot. I like to give money because I get attention for it. Or even more holier, I feel I'm very happy about my situation, and so I throw money, or kindness, or whatever it might be. And then there's kindness that comes from a place of humility, almost as if I feel that I don't even deserve this, and if Hashem gave it to me, it's for the purpose of helping other people. And that kind of kindness has a lot of beauty to it, which we will discuss soon more at length. And that specific kindness, which we see in Avram, how he sacrificed his own life, both physically, where he went to fight with the kings of Sodom, and both spiritually, when he stopped a meeting with Hashem to welcome in guests who actually weren't even, as far as he could see them, righteous people. They were Arabs that were idolaters. But that is the ultimate form of kindness. We see that in both of these two mitzvahs. In the mitzvah of the para aduma, the mitzvah is that the kohanim and anybody involved in the process, they themselves become tamei. So in order to make someone else tahir, they have to put themselves in a state of impurity, which is a sacrifice for the sake of another yid. And in the case of the para of the saita, the parchment with the name of Hashem gets rubbed out and erased into the water, and Hashem says, for the sake of peace between a husband and wife, I'm ready that my name should be erased, the name of holiness, the name that we never defile or desecrate, and in this case we're doing so for the sake of peace. In both of these mitzvahs, we see a sense of sacrifice and giving something up for the sake of the other person or the other cause, and that is the ultimate chesed. That is the chesed of Avram, which he displayed to us and taught us to emulate. That's at least there's the first part of the Sicha, and I think it gives us plenty to begin to analyze what it means and how to draw it down into our lives.
Yeah, so I guess I'll start from the beginning when the Rebbe speaks about what was unique about the Chesed of Abraham, and that in Ois Beis for those who are following in the actual Sikha. And it's there's two different types of people who are giving tzedakah, and we'll start with this. The first person is basically saying Chesed Gdula, I want to be kind, I want to be grateful, and to Hashem for giving me everything, and I want to be a good person. I'm a good person, so I want to give tzedakah. But that's second, which means is, in other words, I'll calculate how much the poor person needs and I'll give it to them. But it's really my money. That's really where it is. It's mine, or my talent, or it belongs to me. The other one, chesed dekatnus, or the chesed that comes from a place of humility, is that the Rebbe says over there something so beautiful, that first he gives everybody, he takes the minimum for himself, and the rest he basically gives away. Right? He looks at what he needs, but he doesn't ever look at it that it belongs to him. And I'm not here to discuss how much tzedakah a person should give and the numbers, but I think the attitude over here is definitely very, very telling in practice, in a very practical reality that we live in. When people are giving tzedakah, are they giving it because I love their organization, I love that what they do for me, or I love that cause, or does it come from a place that really everything I have is not even mine ever? It was never mine from the get-go, and I'm really looking out for the person. And as somebody who's, even myself, is in the fundraising business, or just have a lot of friends who give tzedakah, it's two worlds apart in the way the person receiving it feels the difference between these two things. I mean, it's really, but ultimately, as what we're trying to accomplish and to get to the offer of Vayera, is that we should always look for the minimum for ourselves and the maximum for others. And that's really the core of the Sicha over here. Like what's the least we need and the most other people need, and how can we give it to them? I'll stop here and let Shmuley continue.
I remember, I think it was Benji Stock, correct me if I'm wrong, used to come into the aisle and he would see people, he would say, take out your wallet.
Shimshon,
Shimshon
Benji's
Stock.
father, Olav Shalom.
I'm sorry, Shimshon Stock. Take out your wallet, take out $5 and give me the rest. Right? Maybe that was the perspective he was trying to teach us. But I remember once, I'm trying to remember where I heard it, but as an example, in relation to tzedakah or in relation to chesed, we're happy to be talking about tzedakah here, but it's not only tzedakah. This idea of chesed really is much bigger than only giving financially. It's achnasas archim, obviously, in the core story that we're talking about. But as a perspective, it's like when you put your money in the bank, and you earned $100, you take the $100, you put it in the bank, and then you come to the banker, come to the teller, and you ask for $20. I want to take debit. I want to take out, and the teller, the person at the teller says, "No, sorry, I don't want to give it to you." You know, it's a chutzpah. This is not your job. Your job is to sit there and help me make this transaction. This is not who you are. And really, we need to see ourselves as God's bankers. We're not in charge of these aspects of wealth. And when I say wealth, I don't necessarily only mean monetary wealth, but everything that we have, our homes, our money, our resources, our humor, our education, and all the resources that we have. We're God's bankers. I mean, there's no such thing as it's time to disperse that you say, sorry, I'm going to hold it. It's not yours to hold. It's just a perspective on our role in what we're doing here. But I think that just breaking it down, coming down to we all know about kindness, we all know about chesed, we all know about doing these things. But what happened here in this story, I think, just going back to the original story, one of the many stories of chesed with Avram, but the Rebbe mentions this, is how he was conversing with Hashem, with the Shechina, right? He was in a very, very, he was doing something very, very important. And someone's knocking on the door. Who's knocking on the door? Not only was it not an important meeting that he was prearranged, they probably didn't call before and let him know that they're coming and set a meeting with this very important person. It's even people who maybe didn't think like Abraham, and there were people who were Eved Avodah Zarah, these idolaters or whatever they were. They certainly weren't his favorite people. He's pastime, and it just makes me think, how often we're in a circumstance when we're busy, busy. What are you busy with? What are you so busy with? What are you doing that's so important? There's someone knocking on your door. There's someone walking through your Chabad house. There's somebody who's sitting across you on a subway, and you're busy on your phone. You're busy. What big deal? You're making your $100 million deal. Like what are you doing? You're doing nothing. I mean, with all due respect, you're doing what are we doing? What's so important? And it's just a perspective shift. Because people came for Achnasas Orchim. People came, they needed something to eat. They just needed someone to open the door and talk to them for a moment. And Avram was busy, actually busy. He was busy. He was busy with something very important. And this is a perspective of our life. We get carried away with checking our email and checking our this and doing our day to day. And I have an event tomorrow, and I'm very busy. I'm very busy. You call me, I can't answer the phone. What are you so busy with? And I think that's the foundation as far as perspective of what are you doing here? You're busy doing what? You're chasing your tail, running, 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 running what? Hashem sent some people to your door. They're knocking. They're right in front of you. They're sitting on the subway right in front of you. They're sitting on the bus right in front of you. They're sitting on the plane right next door to you. They walk through your Chabad house because they're just... That, what do you mean? Hashgacha Pratis is playing out right in front of you. You have, and by the way, it's not just about Chabad house. It's your children. It's your family. You're busy. What are you busy? David should put you here to be a father for us, to be a father of our children, to be to take care of our family. What's more important? I'm busy. What? Anyway, just before we get to the chesed itself, to understand what's the context of the story, the whole buildup of Avram's chesed came in the context of a very busy person in a busy situation. Hitaka was busy. Nonetheless, he went.
And
What's
he
that?
was he was under the weather, to put it
That
mildly. He was the
he
third day
also
after his bris. But the actual words of Anochi Aver Ve'efer, actually not by the Achnasas Orchim, it's by his negotiating with the people of Zdoim, which takes your point to the next level. Here, there were these cities that lived that were situated nearby, where the people were horrible, where they were horrible people. We know that already. We know from the way the other things Torah tells us. And Avram is negotiating with Hashem to save these people. He's saying maybe there's a chance. Maybe if there's a few tzaddikim left, maybe the tzaddikim can influence them, and they could change their ways. Maybe at least we should change the few tzaddikim we could save the few tzaddikim that are there. And it shows the level of Avram's caring, not just his chesed, where he actually gave food and drink to the guests, but he actually really truly cared about people that lived in a different city, that had very different views of society than he did. Their view of society was to chop people's feet off if they were too long, or put people in honey in the beehive if they were too kind, which clearly is the polar opposite of Avram's version of social goodness, social kindness. And yet, Avram, besides finding the time for it, Avram puts himself at the mercy of Hashem's feet, so to speak, because he believed in them and cared enough about them to say to Hashem, "V'anechi afer ve'efer." And in a world, in a time where, I don't even mean global issues, I mean even internal communal issues, where we might be on two different sides of an issue. I'm purposely not using the word political, because political could get translated as world politics, and I don't even want to go that far. But with two sides of an issue, and I have an opinion and you have an opinion, and we see it so differently. And then we chas v'shalom, we hear something that the person on the other side of the aisle needs something, and I'm thinking to myself, he's let his social group handle it. They have their own system and their own chesed system, but if I have an opportunity to do something, a fellow chassid, a fellow yid, and I'm going to say, oh no, this is not my camp, this is not my team, it's not my party. I can't. This is a lesson we could learn from Avram, that even when it's someone else that's not in my world or in my life, chesed from a place of kindness, of katnus, means that I can cross the aisle in whatever that might mean in a specific situation, to be able to be kind and thoughtful and caring about that other person. Just as a funny note, this past Shabbos, I was at a hotel in Connecticut. I was speaking at an event for over Shabbos, and next door to us was a Sheva Brachas, two Hasidic families celebrating a Sheva Brachas, and they had some good food there, they had some good mashke there, and so on and so forth. And right in the beginning of Shabbos, we davened in the same shul. In other words, the group that I was with didn't have a minyan, so we davened with their minyan. They had toyameha, the Friday afternoon food that went deep into Rabbeinu Tam Shkia. So when we came from Mincha, there was food there, and there was this. They were so welcoming and so like I was holding my 2-year-old, and he saw the hot dogs, and he says, hot dog, hot dog. The guy went, the father of the kala. He took a hot dog off the roller, put it in a bun, put it ketchup on it, gave it to my kid. I felt like I was part of the family. It was just a beautiful display of chesed for technically somebody that once upon a time would have been considered from the other side of the aisle. So it's just a nice there's a recent example.
Yeah, so I just want to, based on what you said before, and just take it up one notch, which is the
Okay,
Rebbe
soon we're going to
uses.
go too high in the notches. We won't be able to
No,
go
no,
like
one
that.
because no one because Shmuli's example before, and your example of I'm busy with something, but there's one extra point here, and if you want to for a personal, if you want to define for yourself, if you are a descendant of Avraham Avinu doing offer of Efer, and how can we define that? Because I'm not, we're not here telling anybody how much to give and how much time, and life's complicated. But the definition over here is Avraham Avinu didn't just give up a busy meeting. He gave up his life's mission. Avraham Avinu's whole life was to be with the Eibishter, to be one with God. I mean, that was it. And here he gets it. He gets the Shechina finally. It's you're a sports fan, and you've been waiting to go to the Super Bowl your whole life, and your team is terrible, and finally they make it to the Super Bowl, and you finally you're there. You're standing. You're there. And that's when the Malachim show up, and that's when the Nud shows up, and that's when the person shows up. You finally made it to whatever your dream is. And the Rebbe uses the word Mesiras Nefesh, and I do say that is the word for Chesed. When it gets literally uncomfortable, I'm going to say a story because it's an extreme story, and when you get an extreme story, people, that's why I remember it, because you always remember the extreme story. But 2 months ago, when this guy, Levi Yitzchak Pash from Beitar, when he gave up his seat, right, on the bus, on the tram, tramp, he had a ride, and he was in there, and he gave up his seat, and then he ended up dying. So it's like, where's the justice? Where's here a guy, was, of course, no problem. You need to go to the hospital, you go, and then he ends up getting killed in a terrorist attack. But that's exactly the point. The point is, because that's an extreme story. The point is, okay, so Pasha died, the Mesiras Nefesh, for doing a chesed for another Jew. We don't have to die, Baruch Hashem. We have opportunities in our life. But that's the key word. And that's what we're talking about, like the other side and the other aisle. And sometimes it takes Mesiras Nefesh. We don't like the person in our community. We don't like them. We don't like them for very good reasons, and there's a lot of different ways we can go about this. And that's the defining line. The Mesiras Nefesh is exactly at that moment is, are you ready to, and that's what off of Efer, and that's really the Rebbe's examples that we didn't even get to. You got to in the beginning, but we didn't bring about giving up a Saita, right? I'll just use the Saita example when you talk about, like, the guy's not religious enough. He's not good enough. He's not whatever. You know what I mean? Like, you're busy defending the Shechina. You're busy defending Hashem's name. That's what you're busy doing. And what's the schus that Avraham Avinu gets for his Mesiras Nefesh is that for Shalom Bayis, his Einiklach, his descendants will get to erase Hashem's name for a little Shalom. Right? Well, the guy's not going to want it. That's exactly what you get to do as a merit for you having such an amazing ancestor, Avraham Avinu. So yeah, I mean that's what we should shift. I mean the mysterious nefesh piece, when it gets uncomfortable, literally uncomfortable, that's to me the defining idea of the chesed of Offer Ve'efer.
Just to put it in other words, and then we'll sort of wrap it up a little bit. But I think what this is really about is about measured responses or the lack of measured responses. Um, we live in a calculated world, so it's very common to calculate our responses relevant to the experiences and environment and everything that's, and what's going on. And I think that the message here is that Avram is this is not it wasn't it's not a measured response. Um, it's very extreme. It's very extreme. It's very, very unfiltered. It's very pure, to the point that it crosses the aisle into Gevura as well, which Rebbe talks about. It's just really unconventional structure. Now, the fact that the fact that um, like it started off, that people do chesed, that people do, people have the ability. This is something that, of course, you have to help, and you see when it comes to someone or some, in a normal structure. But going beyond to the point that there is no calculation and measurement is very it's very novel. That comes from a place of humility. It comes from a place of sense of purpose beyond self, because the self is measured and the self is understood, and I have a calculation and I have a mission and I know who I am and what I'm supposed to do, and then like Yisrael said, I need to meet the Shechina and so on. So I'll finish I'll hand it over to Moshe. I'll just finish one last piece of the Sicha, which really I think is very novel. It's almost in the form of a question. In all this about Avram and all this buildup about unfiltered chesed, the Rebbe asks, but where does Avram? I'll say it in Yiddish because that's just like it hit me. From wann is gekommen to Avram and Azan Haga? Like
Such a great question because it's so
yeah,
not
like
normal.
it's not normal. And I think that we could talk about the answer, and we talked about the answer already a little bit, Bittul and Offer Ve'efer and all that. But I think that the question still is such a powerful message, because the Rebbe is asking the question. The Rebbe is saying to us, it's a real question. It's very, very novel. It's almost like, where does this is weird behavior. This is not normal behavior. Where does someone get to act like this? Unfiltered kindness? Where does such a creation come from? How did he, how does this even possible? And the message to me is that that's the natural default of us, is to measure our responses. I don't like you, so I'm not, what? Someone else will deal with you, whatever. Okay, call somebody else. Leave me alone. I mean, that's the natural way. Of course, I would do kindness. Of course, I'll help you, but I'm not gonna help you. I don't know you. When was the last time you called me for my birthday? When was the last time want to start? Make a cheshbainis, right? Whatever. I mean, that's how we're created. So where does this strange character of Avram come from? It's like, how do you come to behave that way? Who are you? So the question is just fascinating. It's a fascinating question, but obviously it's insight into what we need to strive to be and strive to become and grow from. So anyway, I'll leave it with that.
My conclusionary remarks is I find it fascinating that both of the sichas that we learned this week are focused on chesed beyond. In other words, the first sicha, which obviously we didn't get we can only focus on one sicha at a time, but there was this concept of doing achnasas archim, that the shita of the Rambam halacha is that it's not enough to provide the person with their needs, but to give them a feeling of being wanted and of belonging. And it begins right when you see them the first time. And it continues until after they left your house and you're accompanying them. And again, in the second sikha, which we're discussing now, is this concept of going against our nature, of doing things, doing chesed with Mesidus Nefesh. And I think that there is a very straightforward takeaway with regards to the fact that, as we've been saying till now, but maybe to use a drop of different Isius, What happens when a person is a chesed person, and when the moisdis call for a donation, they give, and they give more than they feel that the moisdis deserves or that they can afford. And if someone needs a place for Shabbos, they're there. But then there is what's a part of society that's not asking and is not in your face, and they might go unnoticed just because of the fact that it looks like everything is fine for them. They're doing their life, they're living their life. They're not a moisid that's asking for money. They're not a poor person that's looking for a place for a meal or for Shabbos. And the person, if you ask him what he thinks about himself, I'm an incredibly good Bal Chesed. I donate, I give. People know if they need, they come, they ask. But what about the person that isn't asking? What about the person that lives down the block and it just goes unnoticed for whatever reason? There's nothing unique about him that should stand out, either that he needs chesed or that he doesn't need chesed. And it could be that one of the messages that we're learning in the Sicha is Mesiris Nefesh of Chesed, or Mesiris Chesed that comes from a place of Anava V'Shiflus, means to find opportunities for Chesed that they themselves may not know that they need Chesed. If somebody is in my range, my neighborhood, my block, my world, somebody that I was meant to notice them, to notice them. To notice them. If they don't need, they don't need. Offer, find out. But to go beyond our immediate circle and our immediate feelings of obligation, the moistness that our kids go to, so we feel obligated or whatever it might be, and to be able to go out of our own box, and to notice and to be able to do chesed beyond. And this might be what's unique about these sichas versus the whole concept of chesed and Avraham. We learn every time, go chesed, 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 which is a beautiful thing. That many people be outside of the world of Chabad are also incredible bali chesed. And the sicha is teaching us that there is no limit, meaning to say, a person should never say, I did as much chesed as I could do. Because it's not always about the money that you're giving and the things that you're doing. It's how do you feel about it? What's going on inside of you? If I'm coming from a place of anava v'shiflus, then anybody that might be noticeable, and I have to reach out and find out, do they need something? It might just be a phone call or an arm around the shoulder. And that's another version of Chesed Avram.
Yes, I guess, yeah. So I'll end off by saying two things. One, to follow up with what you're saying, and but before that, I want to say one other thing, is that here the Rebbe says very clearly that this expression of chesed gets in two different ways. One is Avram went to Lot, he put himself in danger. Then there's the level up that Avram gave away Ruchnius, gave away his ability to be with Hashem for these people. To each their own. For some people, it's harder to give away the Gashmius. For some people, it's harder to give the Ruchnius. And everybody knows, and clearly for the Rebbe, it's the Ruchnius is the top. You know what I mean? And in the Sicha. But for some people, it might not be the Ruchnius. It might be, I don't care about my Ruchnius, but it might be the Gashmius. It might be the physical. But both of them are critical. Sometimes and that's why the Gashmius is, I guess, spoken about a lot. It's just spoken about a lot, giving up. In this Sicha, the Rebbe is pushing us to, sometimes you have your routine, your spiritual routine, whatever it may be. You're comfortable. What makes you emotionally happy? Your Gemara, your Daf, your Shir, your whatever you're involved in, and giving that up to literally help anybody. It makes no difference who it is. The Arvim, that it takes pure Mesiris Nefesh. And on that note, I must, back to what you were talking about, just helping people when they don't even know they need help. I got such a beautiful message, and maybe you also did, from a friend of ours, after Motzei Shabbos last week, after what happened last week with the with the Shliach's kid. And he spoke about his youth and growing up, having to leave home at a young age, and how difficult it was. Like really, it brought up for him a lot, like the difficulty of a Shliach's kid having to leave at a young age. And I can cry when I said it, because he said it so he opened his heart. It was so powerful. He said, I never want a shliach's kid to walk down Kingston Avenue and ever feel that he's lonely. I want him to know, just because he's thousands of miles away, everybody loves him. Like, and he wants to know what he can do about it practically. And that's the kind of kid you were talking about earlier. It's not a chesed case. Baruch Hashem, his parents are giving him the credit card, whatever he needs. There's no emergency fund needing to be open here. But does it take a person looking out for someone who's struggling down the street and needs love? And you happen to be in that person's way, and you can go, and there's nothing in you, but you can just reach out. Absolutely, Pashut, it's mysterious nefesh in the sense that you're going out of your comfort zone. Why the person even need you? Don't even know. Not you don't know the guy. What you always think your calculation is why me and who does he even need? Yes, that person needs you. Every person needs you. Reach out to them. Reach out to the people who are lonely. Like it's been mysterious nefesh in every possible way. That's my l'chaim for the day.
Thank you, Yisrael. I just want to, just to add a point that you said the shliach's kid. It not necessarily is it a shliach's kid.
I know because it triggered
I
this
understand.
guy who grew up on
I understand.
shluchas. That's what I said.
And
But
no,
for anybody.
I'm not arguing with you, Chas Shalom.
Yeah.
You said it, and you said it so beautifully and so succinctly. But I just want to include that it could be an adult, it could be a child, it could be the child of that lives out of town, in yeshiva somewhere, and he needs that attention. And yeah, you're 100% correct about that.
Shkoyach, everybody, and we'll see you, God willing, next week.
In Yud Hashem.
Mitzvah Shem.